"Step aside, ma'am. This area is under surveillance." A firm voice cut through the hum of the drugstore, freezing Angela Johnson mid-step as she reached for a bottle of cough syrup, the fluorescent lights above flickering slightly, the air thick with tension and the faint smell of coffee from the counter. At 28, Angela, a library assistant known for her quiet kindness and sharp mind, had never imagined she'd be the center of such attention. Yet here she was, standing straight, her brown eyes steady despite the tightening in her chest, observing the subtle shifts around her, noticing the way customers froze mid-motion, the sound of carts scraping lightly against the polished tile, the low murmur of whispers weaving through the aisles, and the sharp click of a surveillance camera turning to face her. Two officers, white, impeccably uniformed, approached with a controlled, almost performative authority, their faces locked in professional neutrality, yet their eyes flicked to her in a way that revealed judgment and unease. The contrast between their imposed power and her composed presence creating a visible tension that rippled outward through the store. Angela's thoughts raced, but remained tethered to clarity, recalling the small handouts at the community center about legal rights and public interactions, the rehearsed words she had never thought she'd use suddenly forming in her mind with precision. She raised one hand calmly to indicate she would cooperate, but also record the interaction, her other hand holding her shopping basket steadily at her side. The officer's pace slowed slightly, a brief exchange of glances passing between them, as if questioning the unfolding dynamic. Angela's gaze met a young mother's across the aisle, the child clutching a plush toy tightly, both of them silently acknowledging the strange stillness, the aisles of products around them becoming a stage where every detail, the shimmer of a can, the reflection on a plastic bottle, the slight sway of a hanging display, heightened the tension without a single raised voice, the fluorescent hum acting as a drumbeat in the background, her breathing measured, shoulders relaxed but alert, every step and shift of her weight deliberate, projecting calm authority as her mind cataloged the situation, who was watching, which angle the cameras might record, the subtle footstep of another shopper approaching, the way the sunlight angled through the front glass casting diagonal streaks across the floor. Angela moved slightly to create space while maintaining eye contact with the approaching officer, her voice soft but confident as she spoke, citing her understanding of the store policy and rights. She held, each word resonating in the quiet aisles, a ripple moving through the shoppers as whispers of recognition spread, the officers momentarily faltering, their practiced composure brushing against the undeniable presence of her dignity and intellect. Angela's heart rate steadied. The tension around her seemed to pause, the very air in the drugstore holding its breath, the fluorescent light catching the determined glint in her eyes. And as the camera atop the ceiling angled toward the scene, it captured a moment of stillness, of power quietly asserted, of observation and presence that spoke louder than any words could, leaving a subtle but undeniable question hanging in the minds of all who watched. What would happen next in this confrontation between authority and integrity? Angela Johnson stepped back slightly, her hands still visible and calm as she observed the reactions of the store employees and the customers who had frozen mid-motion, their eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and concern, the fluorescent lights above casting elongated shadows across the polished tile floor, and the faint smell of freshly baked bread from the nearby bakery counter lingering in the air. She noticed the subtle twitch of the security camera mounted near the ceiling, following her every movement, and she adjusted her stance, keeping her posture straight and steady, every muscle relaxed yet ready, her mind cataloging the details of the scene, who might support her, who might intervene, the spacing of the aisles, the reflective surfaces of the display cases showing fragmented reflections of the tense tableau. Angela's breathing measured, in and out, her heartbeat echoing softly in her ears as she recalled the quiet lessons learned from volunteering at the community center and assisting patrons at the local library. Experiences that had honed her patience and clarity under pressure. She began to speak in a calm and clear voice, stating her understanding of the store policies and her rights, her tone measured but firm, the officers pausing as if caught off guard by the confidence and precision of her words. A soft murmur passed through the customers who had begun whispering to each other, eyes darting between her and the uniformed figures. Angela's gaze flicked to a young man stocking shelves nearby, his hand frozen in mid-motion, the tension on his face giving way to intrigue as he realized she was not reacting out of fear, but with thoughtful assertion. Angela subtly tilted her head, emphasizing a point, each word deliberate, the officer's expressions shifting slightly. A momentary hesitation breaking the rigid control they had attempted to project. A manager appeared from the back office, eyebrows raised, eyes scanning the situation as the faint hum of the overhead air conditioning system filled the brief gaps in conversation. The customer's hushed whispers became a quiet chorus of anticipation, the soft click of a smartphone camera capturing the unfolding event. Angela maintained her composure, projecting a quiet authority that contrasted with the rigid formality of the officers. Her movements precise, yet natural, a hand gently gesturing to indicate her willingness to cooperate while also asserting her understanding. The officers exchanged subtle glances, their rigid posture faltering for the first time, the atmosphere in the drugstore thick with anticipation, every sound. The jingle of a bell over the door as someone entered, the faint shuffle of shoes on tile, the distant beep of a price scanner, heightened the sense of suspense. Angela's eyes swept the room, noting the expressions of the onlookers, the slight narrowing of a customer's eyes, the small nod of recognition from a cashier who seemed to understand the weight of the moment, the officer's previously unwavering confidence giving way to the realization that the balance of authority in the store had shifted, Angela's calm determination acting as a fulcrum, tilting the perception of power, and for a moment, the entire store seemed suspended, caught in the quiet drama of integrity meeting scrutiny, leaving the subtle tension unresolved, a question lingering in the air about what the next steps might be. As she held her gaze steady, the light glinting off her watch and the faint reflection in a nearby mirror capturing the stillness of her composed figure, a presence that spoke volumes without raising her voice, commanding attention through poise and clarity, the scene unfolding in a way that made every observer, from the officers to the customers, acutely aware of the power of quiet confidence, patience, and knowledge, creating an almost cinematic moment of suspense and anticipation for what would come next. The subtle tension in the air thickened as Angela Johnson maintained her composure, her eyes scanning the small crowd of onlookers who had stopped in their tracks, frozen mid-action, the fluorescent lighting reflecting off the polished floor and casting elongated shadows across the aisles, every product on the shelves appearing more vivid in the heightened stillness. The faint hum of the refrigeration units blending with the soft shuffle of shoes and the distant squeak of carts. Angela's breathing steady and measured. She recalled the community workshops she had attended, moments where patience and clarity had shifted misunderstandings into moments of understanding. She felt the knowledge settle into her stance as she raised her voice calmly, articulating her understanding of customer rights and store policy, each word deliberate and clear, resonating through the silent aisles like ripples across a still pond. The officers hesitated, their training and practiced authority meeting the undeniable calm and intelligence of her presence. A manager slowly emerged from the back office, expression shifting from curiosity to concern as they realized the potential for error. Angela subtly shifted her weight, her movements smooth and precise, projecting confidence without aggression, her gaze sweeping across the witnesses, noting the wide eyes of a child clutching a toy, the subtle nod of an elderly customer who had seen enough to recognize the merit of her words. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, the quiet clicks of phones recording the scene, the soft whispers of neighbors exchanging glances, every detail amplifying the tension. Yet Angela remained poised, a calm center in the storm. The officers exchanged a brief glance, the rigidity of their posture softening as uncertainty crept into their expressions. Angela's internal monologue remained focused, considering the angles of light, the positions of bystanders, the clarity of her argument, and the impact of the evidence she had gathered. She gestured gently towards the store cameras, highlighting their relevance, her presence commanding attention through sheer clarity and composure rather than volume or force. The moment stretched, elongated in the quiet intensity. The shoppers and staff caught in a shared awareness of the unfolding dynamic. Angela's steady voice continued to articulate points with precision, the officer's confidence waning as they processed the inevitability of the situation. The manager's steps quickened slightly, eyes flicking between Angela and the officers, the soft rustle of a paper bag being adjusted, the faint click of a scanner, all tiny details underscoring the suspense and gravity of the moment. Angela's posture remained impeccable, projecting authority and dignity, the fluorescent lights glinting off the edges of her glasses, and the reflective surfaces of nearby bottles. Every observer, from the officers to the customers, felt the shift in energy, the quiet assertion of integrity creating a palpable tension, leaving everyone poised on the edge of anticipation. The scene is study in composure, clarity, and moral presence, building an unspoken crescendo that held the potential for revelation, correction, and recognition. Every breath, every subtle movement contributing to a delicate balance that could tip at any moment, the weight of attention settling fully on Angela as she prepared to guide the next steps, the store silent but alive with expectation, and the subtle question lingered in the air: who would act next and how? Would the outcome unfold, leaving the moment suspended in both tension and hope, a precise tableau of ethics, awareness, and the quiet power of steadfast composure. Angela Johnson felt the tension in the store reach a delicate peak, the customers frozen mid-step, their eyes wide with astonishment and uncertainty, the fluorescent lights above casting a slightly harsh glare across the polished floor, highlighting the faint reflections of the shelves and the products displayed, every detail crisp and vibrant against the charged atmosphere. Her hands remained steady at her sides, palms open, projecting calm authority as she carefully chose each word to explain her perspective, citing her rights and the store's policies with clarity and confidence. The officers hesitated, their previous rigidity softening as they absorbed the precision and poise of her statements. A manager emerged from the back office, his footsteps measured, eyebrows raised, noting the subtle shift in dynamics. The soft rustle of a paper bag being adjusted and the faint click of a smartphone camera recording the scene punctuated the stillness. Angela's gaze moved through the crowd, catching small signs of empathy and understanding. The elderly customer nodding slightly, a teenager adjusting his posture in respect, the quiet hum of the air conditioning blending with the soft whisper of voices exchanging observations. The officers exchanged a brief glance, uncertainty flickering across their faces as Angela continued speaking, her voice calm but deliberate, projecting authority without aggression, each sentence reinforcing her knowledge and integrity. The crowd's attention fixed on her, the anticipation building like a quiet crescendo, Angela's stance unwavering, her movements deliberate and smooth, signaling readiness to act, but with composed restraint. She subtly gestured to the cameras positioned around the store, emphasizing the transparency of her actions, the officers' expressions shifting further, the authority they had projected earlier now tempered by recognition of her insight and moral presence. Angela's eyes scanned the room, noting the subtle cues of acknowledgment and respect from bystanders, the faint reflection of her figure in a glass display case creating a visual echo of composure and control. Each breath she took measured, her calmness contrasting with the tension around her, the air thick with suspense, yet punctuated by the quiet sounds of the store, the distant squeak of a cart, the soft click of a scanner, the shuffling of feet, all contributing to a heightened awareness of the moment. Angela maintained her focus, projecting integrity and steadiness. The officers now pausing fully, their posture no longer rigid but tentative, the subtle acknowledgment of her correctness palpable, the manager's presence reinforcing the shift, the space between the authority figures and Angela charged with anticipation. Every observer in the store sensing the balance of power gently tilting, the scene unfolding like a delicate choreography. Angela's measured words and composed stance creating a quiet dominance, the crowd holding their collective breath, the uncertainty and expectation lingering, every detail, light, sound, reflection, expression, enhancing the tension, leaving the audience suspended in curiosity, wondering what the next move would be, how the officers would respond, and whether the equilibrium of authority would be fully acknowledged. Angela's calm, precise, and deliberate demeanor serving as the fulcrum for the moral and social dynamics of the scene, creating an invisible yet undeniable shift in power, leaving the final resolution just beyond reach, a moment frozen in anticipation and ethical presence. The moment thickened with suspense as Angela Johnson continued to hold her ground, the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above mixing with the faint shuffle of feet and the low murmur of whispered conversations, creating a rhythm that seemed to pulse through the aisles, her brown eyes scanning the crowd with measured calm, noting the subtle shifts in posture and expression from the onlookers, each individual caught between curiosity and concern. The officers' faces slowly losing their rigid composure, replaced by fleeting uncertainty. A manager stepped closer, the polished floor reflecting the movement of shadows across the neatly arranged shelves. Angela adjusted her stance slightly, keeping her hands visible, her gestures deliberate but unassuming, emphasizing her willingness to cooperate while maintaining an unmistakable presence of authority. She spoke clearly and confidently, articulating the rationale behind her actions and citing store policy, the precise cadence of her words carrying through the tense air, resonating with the employees, customers, and even the officers, a subtle acknowledgment passing through the crowd as they recognized the careful balance of knowledge and composure in her demeanor. Angela's breathing remained steady, in rhythm with the soft clicks of a scanner and the occasional rustle of paper from a nearby counter, each sound accentuating the charged atmosphere without breaking the quiet intensity. The officers glanced at each other, their prior certainty wavering, while Angela's calm and deliberate presence became the focal point of the scene, a quiet gravity that drew attention. Without force, her voice unwavering as she continued to outline the facts, the ethical clarity of her statements slowly dismantling the officers' previously projected authority. The manager's gaze shifted between Angela and the uniformed figures, noting the subtle shift in control and the growing recognition of her correctness. The onlookers held their collective breath, the air thick with anticipation, every subtle movement. An adjusted hand, a slight nod, a soft step back, magnifying the tension. Angela's eyes swept across the faces of those observing, noting tiny gestures of empathy, understanding, and acknowledgment, the fluorescent lights glinting off the polished surfaces and casting a halo of clarity around her figure, the officer's hesitancy now palpable, the rigid posture of earlier moments giving way to tentative curiosity, Angela's composed stance acting as an anchor, centering the room and reinforcing the quiet assertion of integrity. The store felt suspended in a suspended moment of ethical tension, every participant acutely aware of the dynamic between authority and moral correctness. Angela's deliberate, confident, and poised demeanor maintained the balance, her measured words continuing to resonate with precision, the scene unfolding like a careful choreography, the audience of onlookers held in suspense, the officer's uncertainty now fully visible, the subtle acknowledgement of Angela's correctness sending a ripple through the space, the anticipation lingering like a drawn breath, the next steps yet to be taken, leaving the environment charged with a quiet, compelling energy. The moment hovering on the edge of resolution, the weight of integrity and composed authority anchoring the scene, every element from light to sound to expression converging to sustain the intensity and suspense. The question of how the officers would respond and how the balance of authority would ultimately be acknowledged hanging palpably in the air, the tension stretched taut, yet infused with a sense of measured possibility and ethical clarity that left the store suspended in a compelling, charged quiet. Angela Johnson stood still as the store seemed to exhale around her, the fluorescent lights above casting a steady glow across the polished tiles and the reflective surfaces of shelves lined with neatly arranged products. Every detail catching her eyes as she took in the subtle shifts of posture and expression from the officers and the bystanders. Her hands relaxed yet clearly visible, projecting quiet authority, the faint hum of the refrigeration units blending with the soft whisper of conversations and the occasional beep of a price scanner, creating a rhythm that emphasized the gravity of the moment. Angela allowed herself a small, controlled breath, noting the tentative glances between the officers, the subtle tension in their shoulders, the way they adjusted their stance as if balancing between protocol and the undeniable clarity of her position. The manager stepped closer, walking softly, his polished shoes clicking lightly against the floor, eyes flicking between Angela and the officers, registering the shift in authority. Angela's voice, calm and precise, cut through the stillness as she reiterated her points about rights, policy, and the simple act of fairness, each sentence measured and deliberate, resonating across the frozen aisles. The customers watching intently, leaning slightly forward, their subtle nods and quiet murmurs acknowledging the weight of her words. The atmosphere seemed to stretch and compress at once. Every detail, the reflection in a mirror, the glint of a shopping cart handle, the slight rustle of a plastic bag, amplifying the suspense without breaking the quiet intensity. Angela's posture remained impeccable, a balance of readiness and calm, her eyes sweeping across the room, registering the empathy, surprise, and subtle respect in the expressions of those present. The officers now shifting subtly, their earlier rigidity softening as they absorbed the undeniable presence of her composure. The manager's breath slowed, his shoulders relaxing slightly, the collective attention of the store settling into a quiet focus. Angela's mind cataloged each observation, every angle of light, every sound, every micro-expression, using them to maintain the delicate equilibrium of authority and moral presence. The faint murmur of a nearby customer adjusting their shopping cart, the gentle tap of a pen against a clipboard, all small details heightening the tension. Yet Angela's calm remained unshaken, the fluorescent glow catching her determined gaze and the subtle shine of her watch. The officer's hesitation becoming more pronounced, a silent acknowledgment of the correctness of her stance. The manager taking a small step back, granting the space for the tension to resolve. The room held in a suspended moment of anticipation, every observer acutely aware of the dynamic unfolding between ethical clarity and imposed authority. Angela's deliberate words and poised movements guiding the scenario with quiet force. The store transformed into a tableau of focus, integrity, and subtle power, the uncertainty lingering in the air as the next development remained just beyond reach, leaving everyone in the room suspended between expectation and realization. The ethical and social balance poised on the edge, Angela standing as the unwavering fulcrum of the unfolding moment, the tension around her stretched but stable, the anticipation of resolution palpable, the scene capturing the essence of composed authority, moral clarity, and the quiet assertion of dignity. Every breath, glance, and measured gesture contributing to the charged stillness, leaving the audience with a sense of suspended anticipation and the quiet thrill of watching justice unfold. The store seemed to hold its breath as Angela Johnson's presence filled the space with quiet authority, her posture unwavering, hands relaxed but visible, eyes sharp and attentive, scanning the subtle reactions of every onlooker, the fluorescent lights above casting a consistent glow across the polished floors and reflective surfaces, every detail crisp and alive against the charged atmosphere. The officers' expressions shifted noticeably, a flicker of recognition passing between them as they processed the clarity, precision, and calm control in Angela's demeanor. She spoke again, her voice steady and deliberate, articulating her observations and reasoning with a measured cadence that carried effortlessly across the store. The customers leaning slightly forward, drawn in by the subtle gravity of her words. The manager's steps slowed as he approached, taking in the scene with careful eyes, noting the shift in authority that Angela's composed presence had created, the faint rustle of a paper bag, the soft click of a scanner, the distant hum of the air conditioning, all underscored the heightened awareness in the room without breaking the tension. Angela maintained eye contact with both officers, her expression firm yet non-confrontational, signaling confidence and clarity, her gaze sweeping across the aisle to the bystanders, noting small nods of understanding, subtle shifts in posture. The recognition of her composure, the officer's previously rigid stance, softened as they began to process the undeniable logic and ethical presence Angela projected. The manager stepped slightly to the side, creating a subtle opening that reinforced the change in dynamics. The customer's eyes moved between Angela and the officers, absorbing the moment, a collective acknowledgment of her correctness forming silently across the store. The ambient sounds, the click of a price scanner, the shuffle of shoes on tile, the muted Whispers blended into a rhythm that mirrored the rising realization of authority being balanced by integrity. Angela's movements remained precise, deliberate, her gestures minimal yet effective, reinforcing her points and projecting calm control without a hint of aggression. The officers exchanged cautious glances, their composure challenged but not undermined, the subtle tension now infused with a sense of cautious respect. Angela's presence anchoring the room, creating a focal point that drew attention and shifted perception. The reflective surfaces of shelves and glass counters captured fragmented images of the scene, amplifying the intensity and gravity, her breathing steady, the cadence of her words deliberate, the weight of observation and awareness palpable. The officers now fully engaged in processing the shift, their earlier certainty giving way to recognition of her correct stance. The manager nodding subtly, acknowledging the resolution of authority in Angela's favor. The customers remained attentive, the room held in a delicate balance of suspense and ethical clarity. Every small detail, the flicker of a light, the rustle of fabric, the glint of polished metal, heightening the moment. Angela's presence, calm and measured, projected a quiet power that resonated throughout the store, leaving every individual aware of the shift in dynamic. The unspoken acknowledgment of her correctness lingering in the air, the scene poised between resolution and continued anticipation, capturing the nuanced interplay of authority, integrity, and composed decisiveness. The collective breath of the onlookers held in suspension, the officer's hesitation now transformed into reflective awareness, and the space itself seemed to honor the quiet yet undeniable assertion of moral clarity and poised strength that Angela embodied. Angela Johnson felt a subtle shift in the room as the officers slowly lowered their hands, their rigid posture softening into hesitant acknowledgement. The manager stepping forward with a careful smile, the polished floors reflecting the glow of the fluorescent lights and casting elongated shadows that seemed to stretch toward Angela, as if affirming the quiet authority she had asserted. Her hands relaxed at her sides, the corners of her mouth lifting just slightly in a composed, almost imperceptible nod. The onlookers leaning subtly forward, their whispers carrying a mixture of relief, admiration, and silent recognition. The air thick, yet tempered by the calm she exuded. The soft hum of the refrigeration units blending with the faint rustle of shopping bags and the distant beep of a price scanner. Every sound a subtle underscore to the moment of resolution forming around her. Angela's eyes swept the room one last time, noting the tentative but growing respect in the expressions of the officers. The manager's subtle gesture toward the aisles signaling that the immediate tension had dissipated, yet the acknowledgement of her poise and ethical clarity lingered in the space. The customer's attention held in quiet awe, some leaning in slightly, others adjusting their positions to get a clearer view, the reflective surfaces of counters and shelves capturing fragments of movement, light, and expression that emphasized the serene dominance of Angela's presence, her breathing even and measured, each step, gesture, and glance deliberate yet unassuming, reinforcing her quiet control without raising her voice. The officers exchanging subdued glances as if reconciling the earlier authority they had tried to exert with the undeniable correctness and composure Angela displayed, the manager nodding slightly to each of them, a subtle signal that the situation had been resolved with fairness, the collective awareness of the crowd sharpening, the tension transforming into a shared understanding of integrity, correctness, and human dignity. Angela's posture remained unwavering, the faint reflection of her determined gaze in a nearby glass display adding to the visual confirmation of her quiet triumph, every breath, movement, and detail contributing to a tableau of moral clarity, poised strength, and unspoken recognition. The officers' tentative acceptance now visible, their prior hesitation giving way to respectful acknowledgement, the manager's presence reinforcing the resolution without words, the shoppers and staff alike taking. In the moment, the room filled with a gentle energy of approval and reflective attention, the fluorescent lighting glinting softly off edges of counters, labels, and surfaces, emphasizing the calm, deliberate, and composed central figure who had guided the scene to this point. Angela's subtle nod to the manager and a glance toward the officers communicated a sense of closure, a silent affirmation of her ethical stance, leaving everyone in the store with the impression that integrity, composure, and awareness could command recognition and respect without confrontation. The space holding the quiet resonance of justice realized, leaving a lingering sense of anticipation for what might follow beyond this moment. Yet the immediate acknowledgment and understanding firmly rooted in the presence of Angela Johnson, standing poised, dignified, and quietly triumphant as the room adjusted to the subtle but unmistakable shift in moral and ethical authority. Angela Johnson stepped slowly toward the exit, the polished tile floor reflecting the soft glow of the fluorescent lights above, the aisles behind her now filled with a quiet energy of acknowledgment and subtle admiration, the officers standing slightly apart, their postures relaxed yet attentive, the manager nodding once with a reserved smile, the customers shifting their attention back to their shopping, yet casting occasional glances toward her as if the presence of her calm authority still lingered in the space. Angela's hands moved naturally at her sides, her gaze sweeping over the room, noting the subtle expressions of respect, recognition, and reflective thought in each individual. The hum of the refrigeration units blended with the soft shuffle of feet and the distant beep of scanners, creating a gentle, steady rhythm that seemed to underscore the resolution of tension. Angela's breathing remained measured and deliberate, her posture conveying quiet confidence and dignity. The reflective surfaces of glass counters and polished product labels capturing fleeting glimpses of her figure as she moved with a composed grace through the store. The atmosphere itself seemed to soften, the previous tautness of anticipation, replaced by a subtle hum of understanding and ethical acknowledgment. The officers now shared brief, almost imperceptible nods between themselves, their earlier tension replaced with a muted recognition of her poise and clarity, the manager stepping slightly aside to allow her unobstructed passage, the customers beginning to murmur softly among themselves, their whispered conversations blending with the ambient hum of the store as a quiet testament to the impact of Angela's presence. Every footstep she took measured, deliberate, creating a rhythm that drew attention without demanding it, the light above glinting off the edge of a shopping basket or a polished can, emphasizing the stillness and control inherent in her movement. Angela's eyes briefly met the gaze of a young mother who had been observing the interaction closely, a small, knowing smile passing between them. The unspoken acknowledgement of integrity and composed authority bridging the silent space, the officers now, observing without movement, their attention fully captured by the subtle power of quiet composure and ethical clarity. The manager's expression softening, his body language communicating respect without the need for words, the customers gradually returning to their routines, yet with a lingering awareness of the lesson quietly imparted. Angela reached the front door, the sunlight streaming through the glass panels illuminating her silhouette and casting long shadows across the threshold. The faint rustle of the door swinging open blending with the distant city sounds outside. A breeze carried the scent of fresh air and nearby streets into the store, brushing against her face as she stepped out, the entire scene behind her frozen in a tableau of acknowledgement, integrity, and quiet triumph. The fluorescent lights, the reflective surfaces, the subtle expressions of the officers, manager, and customers all converging into a lasting impression of dignity and composure. Angela paused, just outside, feeling the warmth of sunlight and the faint hum of the city beyond, taking a slow, deep breath, her chest rising and falling with steady rhythm, her eyes glancing briefly back through the glass doors. At the store behind her, a silent, unspoken testament to the power of presence, patience, and ethical clarity, the quiet satisfaction of standing resolute in integrity, leaving a lingering resonance that seemed to stretch beyond the walls of the store. The scene holding its final moment of suspended acknowledgement, leaving the audience with the subtle promise of reflection, recognition, and the enduring impact of composed courage.